Thank you. Uh, Good afternoon, my dear children. In the last session, we had a nice discussion on the production analysis, that is, law of variable proportion. So we have a short, short-run production function and a long-run production function. We discussed short-run production function, that is, law of variable proportion. Now we are going to deal with long production function. It means loss of returns to scale. So the long run production function is explained by the loss of returns to scale. In the long run, all the variables or all the factors are variable. There is no fixed factor. Whereas in short run, one is variable factor, that is one is fixed factor, the others are variable. Whereas in the long run, all the variables are, all the factors are variable ones. So there is no fixed factor in the long run. So the laws of returns to scale explain the relationship between output and the scale of input in the long run when all inputs are increased in the same proportion. That is what this law explains. What is laws of returns to scale? Laws of returns to scale explain the relationship between output and the scale of input in the long run when all the inputs are increased in the same proportion. So this is what is called laws of returns to scale. Now this law is based on assumptions. All the factors are variable. Land, labor, capital. But organization is not variable. Organization is fixed. Organization is constant or fixed. The next is there is no change in technology. And it is also assumed that there is perfect competition in the market. Then the output or returns are measured in fiscal units. So these are the assumptions of laws of returns to scale. Now, according to this law, there are three phases of you know returns to scale. So three phases of production. Okay. So one is the three phases of returns to scale. One is increasing returns to scale. Next is constant returns to scale. Then third is diminishing returns to scale. Now in this case, if all the inputs are increased, by 1%, then output increases more than 1%. What is the level? What is that level tells us? First is increasing returns to scale. So in this stage or in this case, if all the inputs are increased, then output increases by more than 1%. That is called increasing returns to scale. Next comes constant returns to scale. So in this case, if all the inputs are increased, and output output increases exactly by 1%. That is called constant returns. The constant returns to scale refers that if all inputs are increased, output increases exactly by 1%. That is constant returns to scale. Next, diminishing returns to scale. So in this case, if all the inputs are increased, output increases by less than 1%. That is called diminishing returns to scale. So these are the three phases of returns to scale. So this is about the long run production function. Next we move to the law of supply. The law of demand was already discussed. Now we are going to have the revision on the law of supply. Now when we had a discussion on law of demand, the law of demand states that as price increases, the quantity demanded decreases. When price decreases, the quantity demanded increases. That means what? There is an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. So there is no positive relationship. There is negative relationship. There is inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. That is law of demand. Whereas in this part, we are going to know about the law of supply. Law of supply. Now, law of supply states that as the price increases, the quantity supplied also increases. When the price diminishes, when the price of your commodity diminishes, the quantity supplied also diminishes. Have you understood this? So, according to the law of demand, when price increases, quantity demanded decreases. When price decreases, quantity demanded increases. So, inverse relationship. That is negative relationship. Whereas here, when the price increases, the quantity supplied increases. When the price is decreasing, or when price decreases, quantity supply diminishes. Okay. So when there is rise in price, there is rise in quantity supply. And when there is decrease in price, there is decrease in supply. Why? Why there is decrease in supply? Because the producer always wants to earn profit. He wants to maximize his profit. No producer will be producing the commodities for loss, only for benefit, only for profit. That is why when the price of a commodity increases, the producer wants to increase his production. So supply is increased. This is what the law of supply says. Okay. So other things remaining the same. If the price of a commodity increases, quantity supplied increases. If the price of a commodity diminishes, quantity supplied also diminishes. Okay, this is the law of supply. For example, when the price of your cloth increases, then supply will also increase. If the price of your cloth decreases, then they won't produce more. Production will not be more. So they will reduce the production. That means what? Supply will be reduced. Okay. So this law is based on certain assumptions. Every law is based on assumptions in the economic theory. Now, there is no change in the price of the technology. That is, technology remains the same. And there is no change in the factors of production. That is, in the price of factors of production. And the price of substitutes are constant. Price of substitutes remain unchanged or remain constant. Then natural resources and their availability. Natural resources and their availability remain the same. And there is no change in climate. There is no change in political situations. Political situations remain the same. And there is no change in tax policy. Okay, so these are the assumptions of law of supply. Okay, so the supply function refers the functional relationship between output and input. Functional relationship between output and input. That is called the supply function. Supply function or supply is determined by the price of the factors, the price of land, labor, the price of capital, next the prices of related goods, the number of farms, and the technology, then expected price in the future. Okay, all these are the factors which determine supply. That's why we say the supply is determined by these factors. That's why you say supply is the function of, that is QS. Quantity supply is equal to the function of PX, PR, PF, then T, then O, next E. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here QS, quantity supply, function of price of X commodity. Then PR, the price of, yes, price of substitutes. And here, technology. And next is the organization. And next is no, the expected price of a factor or a commodity. That is future expectation of price. Okay, so these are the factors which determine the quantity supply or supply. So supply is a function of all these factors. Now, this law of supply can also be explained with the help of a schedule and a diagram. Now look at this schedule. Price one, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here quantity supplied 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. So supply also increases. So according to this schedule, according to data given in the schedule, as the price increases, the quantity supplied also increases. Okay, that is why it gives positive relationship between price and the supply of a commodity. Okay, so there is positive relationship between the price of a commodity and the supply of a commodity. Supply of that commodity. Now, with this schedule, we can draw the diagram. Here, commodity X, commodity X, and here price. So commodity price is measured on X axis, and Y axis refers the price. That means what? Price is measured on Y axis. Now, when the price is 1 rupee, quantity supplied is 20. Then the price increases, the quantity supplied increases. As the price increases, the quantity supplied also increases. Now, this curve shows or represents a positive slope from left to right. You see, slope of the curve, yes, represents the positive slope from left to right. That means the varieties or the different at different prices, different quantities of supply is measured. So quantity of supply is made at different prices. Okay, different prices here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is the price which is measured on y-axis. We have different prices. Now there are different prices at different quantities of supply. Here A, B, C, D, E. So all these points A, B, C, D, E. These points refer the different prices and different quantities of supply. Okay, it is not the same only one price or the same price. Okay, so there are different prices. So when the price is you know uh, 2 rupees and the price is 2 rupees, then what is the quantity supply? Then when the price is 5 rupees and the price of a commodity is 5 rupees, then what is the level of quantity supply? So different quantities supplied are made at different prices. So this is the positive relationship between supply and the price of a commodity. Okay. Now, now there are factors which determine supply. So one is price of the commodity. How the price of the commodity determines the supply. So higher the price, larger will be the supply. Higher the price, larger the supply. Okay, same. Price increases, quantity supply also increases. So higher the price, larger the supply. That is, one factor that determines supply. And next is the price of other commodities. If the price of commercial crops like cotton rise, it may result in the reduction in the cultivation of food crops like paddy. So that also affects the supply. And next is the price of the factors. The price of the factors also determines the supply. You know, when the input increases, then it results in rise in cost. That is cost of production. So supply is affected. When input means what? The factors which are used in the production. That is input. When the input increases, this causes what? This rise in the cost of production. So that is affecting the supply or that affects the supply. So that is also how the supply is determined. And next is the price expectations. The producers sometimes expect that the price would be increased in future after 1 year, after 2 years, or whatever it may be. So the producer expects that the price would be increased in future. So this expectation of price also determines the supply. So they may withhold stock in their market. So when they expect that the price gets increased, then they will release the stock. Then they will increase the supply. That is the price expectation. And next is the technology. How the technology determines supply with advancement in technology that creates more production. So when there is more production with the use of advanced technology, that causes reduction in the cost of production. Have you understood this? So by using advanced technology, the cost of production becomes low. The cost of production is low. So when the cost of production is low, then the producers are encouraged to produce more. Now, this increases or this causes increase in supply. And that is also one of the factors that determine supply. And next is natural factors. Natural factors like monsoon, climate, all these factors determine the production level. Now, if there is good monsoon, there is regular rainfall, that will increase the production. And there is a favorable climatic conditions, and that will also boost the production level. This is also one of the factors which determine the supply. And next is discovery of new raw materials. When the new raw materials are discovered and they are used in production, so the production is made at cheaper cost. The products commodities are produced with high quality at cheaper cost. Okay, so this also paves the way for determining the, the supply uh, condition. And next is taxes and subsidies. Sometimes the subsidies for the materials. Suppose inputs, subsidies for inputs, then the power, the credit, all these increase the production level. Even that also encourage the producers to produce more. Okay, this is how the subsidies and taxes pave the way for boosting the producers to enlarge their production in order to increase more supply as the prices are increased. Okay, so when the prices are increased, and this sometimes taxes and subsidies. Subsidies also we say the incentives, that is incentives for producers. And next is objective of the firm. The firm is always maximize its production in order to earn maximum profit. So that is why this this level makes the producers to produce or to increase their production level. So these are the important factors which determine supply. Okay, so one is what the price of the factors, the price of the commodity, when the price. And next is the price of the factors of production. And next is the future expectation or price expectation. And next is technology. Then natural factors. And next is discovery of new raw materials. Then new advanced technology. Then taxes and subsidies. Then how a firm wants to maximize its production. So these are the factors which determine the supply. Okay. So first is what we have seen here, the laws of returns to scale. The laws of returns to scale explain the relationship between output and the scale of input in the long run when all the inputs are increased in the same proportion. That is called laws of returns to scale. And it has three phases of returns to scale. One is increasing returns to scale and constant returns to scale and diminishing returns to scale. So in the constant returns, I mean increasing returns to scale, if all the inputs are increased, then output increases by more than 1%. Then another case that is constant returns to scale. If all the inputs are increased, then output increases by exactly 1%. Exactly by 1%. Okay, so that is constant returns to scale. So diminishing returns to scale, if all the inputs are increased, output increases by less than 1%. These are the three phases of returns to scale. When we come to the law of supply, the law of supply states that what? The law of supply states that there is positive relationship between price of a commodity and the supply of that commodity. That means as the price increases, the quantity supplied increases. When the price decreases, the quantity supplied also decreases. That is why it is shown that there is positive relationship between the price of your commodity or the price of your good and the supply of that good. Okay, so there is no negative relationship. And next is the schedule we have already seen, and with the help of the schedule, we have this diagram. You know, you must understand very clearly the nature of demand curve and supply curve. Supply curve always takes its slope from left to right. That means downward. Uh, takes its slope downward from left to right. So this is the nature of demand curve. Whereas supply curve, since there is positive relationship between the price of a commodity and the supply of that commodity, the nature of the supply curve is positive. That means it has a positive slope from left to right. So this is the main difference between the nature of curve of the demand and supply. Okay. So if you understand these two very clearly, and you may not get confusion at any time. Suppose you may see or you may refer any other book, or even you can see even the demand curve or supply curve in the newspaper. When you read Economic Times or a Hindu newspaper, there you can see the India's production level. What is the condition of supply of vaccines? Okay, COVID vaccine. So that and what is the requirement of the COVID vaccine? So that can also be explained with the help of a diagram like this. There, you should not get confusion. So you must have your clear idea of the nature of demand curve and supply curve. Okay. So thank you, my dear children. Have a nice day and observe all the precautions of COVID-19. And it is very pathetic condition that we have coronavirus spreading very fast. Now people should be very careful. So many, our political leaders and even the doctors, the other scientists, always give some points, positive points, how to safeguard, how to protect from the coronavirus. So all these precautionary measures have to be followed very strictly. Okay, so wear your mask when you go out and wash your hands whenever it is required. Then maintain social distance so that you can be away from coronavirus. Thank you.